Welcome to High on Football, and this is another weekend edition. This is Priyadarshi, and on that side we have Pratik saying hi.
Hello.
Okay, so let's straight away get into it. We have quite a few big games to talk about, but where else to begin? But as you can see from the thumbnail and the jerseys we have on, so we are all ready for the weekend. Big game, Chelsea versus Liverpool, probably the biggest game. I know we are just two games in, but last year when we played in the Super Cup, Chelsea and Liverpool, I think that kind of shaped our season in a lot of ways. We really did well in that Super Cup. We weren't expected to. But in a way, after losing 4-0 in the first game, that game gave us a lot of confidence. Then, of course, we have had quite a few tussles with Liverpool over the season. We have beaten them just once, to be honest, in the FA Cup. That too, some will say their second string team. So, lots of things to talk about. I mean, this will be a big test for Lampard's new young side. I know lots of injuries. Ziyech is not available. Thiago Silva, Ben Chilwell, and more importantly, Christian Pulisic after that outstanding game last season. So, what do you think, Pratik?
Battle of the Bridge, the first big game of the season, I might say. Yeah, very excited about it. Obviously, the good thing for Chelsea in this match is that it's in our home. I mean, I think home advantage counts, but I don't know how much that will count without spectators to egg us on. Tough match, a toughie, obviously. Liverpool Chelsea matches have been really nail biting over the past two seasons.
Yeah.
Last season, yeah, the Super Cup was brought up by you, and it was a good match for us, yes. But I still can't actually think beyond the last time we played them and the score line that ensued. 5-3 was it?
The Kepa special, if I may say so.
Yeah, yeah. And the one thing that actually, worries me from that match is we still have the same goalkeeper. So, yeah, I mean,
So there has
Kepa,
been lots about Kepa after the Brighton game. I mean, that one goal that we conceded. Yes, it could have been avoidable. It was, below his arm, again goes in. I don't know whether it is all Kepa's doing. I mean, the defense did not cover themselves in glory before the shot was taken. Somebody should have been closing the striker down. But I know Kepa has a mistake in him every game, but it seems like we are not really giving him the confidence maybe that he needs. The Eduardo Mendy deal is still not confirmed, so I don't know what's going on there. But you think there's another mistake waiting to happen in this league, all thanks to Kepa?
look, the thing is, maybe the fans and the media have been too hard on Kepa, for
Yeah.
about a year now. But he does not make it easier on himself. Truth be spoken. I mean, he does not seem confident in by any stretches of imagination, and I think he's
I
doing
have
more
a
harm
point
to
there.
himself than anyone
Yeah.
else for that matter.
But I have a point there. When you look at De Gea, when he first came in, De Gea had a few, at least the first season definitely was very lackluster. Everyone was saying, does De Gea even belong at a club like Man United? But then certain things happened. De Gea bulked up, did the physical aspect of it, which was required. And then for at least 3 or 4 seasons, he was Man United's best player, right? Almost kept them in the Champions League single-handed. So I'm not saying, Kepa is in the same league as De Gea as per se because we haven't seen anything like it, to be very honest, to make that mind up. But it seems like he's a goalkeeper who is so short on confidence that maybe somehow everyone needs to come together, at least Chelsea fans, and give him some confidence, especially because he will be there between the sticks for the Liverpool game.
Hey, but look, I know what you're talking about. When you say how David De Gea actually came up in the Manu system, but Kepa is starting his third season in Chelsea now, and it's rock bottom from where he's starting. I mean, the good thing is he can obviously be better than what we expect him to be. Yeah, I mean he cannot go any lower. But
And
more than David De Gea, the similarities that I see with Kepa's situation right now are kind of more with Loris Karius around his Champions League final debacle. And you know what happened to Karius after that, even, right? I mean, he could not get his confidence back for months. I mean, he had to be shipped off
Yeah.
to Besiktas, and then he played a few games there and still committed mistakes there. Those blunders were again videos that became viral. So it's a bad place to be. And the thing is, look, I mean, if he was making great saves on one hand and mistakes on the other, if you remember David James from the yesteryears, uh, he was a great goalkeeper from time to time, but yeah, his blunders were also as great as his best saves were. But
Yeah.
do you remember Kepa making a brilliant save to thwart an opposition and
I think I
to
can
save
count
his
on my
goal?
fingers the number of great saves Kepa has made. I can remember one last season when he saved this last minute header from Ben Foster of all the people. Apart from that, not really.
That's the thing. That's the thing. I mean, it's not even flashes in the pan. That's the
Yeah.
problem. I mean, it's okay if you're mistake prone. I mean, he's young. He has a lot of years ahead of him, and it's okay if you make mistakes. But you got to show somewhere and somehow that you got what it takes to be at a top four club in England who are trying to win the title so desperately.
So
Anyway, yeah.
a question. So imagine Eduardo Mendy is about to sign right now. Within the next couple of hours, the club announces that Mendy is fit. He has passed his medical. He is now a Chelsea player. Do you think Lampard will kind of carry him towards Anfield? Ki chalo bhaiya. I'll personally escort you to take charge of the goalkeeping situation tomorrow. Is it
Uh,
that bad, right?
No. I don't think like Lambs. I've seen Lambs actually shield his new players. Like the brilliant way he brought in Christian Pulisic in the sport. Like he was not all gung ho about him from the beginning. He like you ease a fish into water in an aquarium. He did the same with Pulisic and to such great results. I mean, like from the last match also, where we gave double debuts to Warner and Havertz. Havertz was actually looking like a fish out of water. So I don't think Lampard is going to hurry with replacing Kepa with Mendy as soon as he can. But I can definitely see it in a matter of 3-4 matches that we see Mendy between the goalposts at Chelsea. So yeah, I mean that's obviously a downside to start with when we talk about Chelsea Liverpool. Lots of upsides as well. I mean, Timo Werner had a good debut at Brighton. I mean, he looked lively all through the match in spite of having a dead leg, since halftime. So Timo Werner was a bright spot in that match, and so were a lot of other players as well, like N'Golo Kante and Reece James in particular. And even our defense actually held strong in that match. So a lot of good sides to look at, and also Mateo Kovacic making a return to the Chelsea first team, first time this season. So that's also a very optimistic thing to look forward to. As for Havertz, I mean, as I can only talk about as a Chelsea fan, and as a Chelsea fan, I would like to give him some slack. I mean, he has just changed leagues and has just been training for a week or so, and it was
Just been one game. Just been one game, dude.
exact.
We
But people are making so much of it. I mean, they are already branding him as a failure and stuff like that.
talking about people. So I've been reading a lot of reports of Chelsea fans really being unhappy with Lampard after the first game. I mean, talk about extra, overreaction. So basically, the anger is coming from one that all these new signings are not yet fit to play against Liverpool. I mean, everyone was expecting at least Pulisic or Ziyech to be at least fit to, add to that creative impetus. Now, the second thing I'm hearing is, great that all these players are not fit. Okay, understandable. So number one, Lampard's training methods are faulty. He doesn't know how to look after his players. That's the first criticism that I've heard. And number two is, he doesn't have any sense of tactics because he plays Kai Havertz on the right. Okay. Now, anyone who has seen Chelsea over the last couple of months would tell you that, that right is usually occupied by Willian in the previous season. This season, maybe Callum Hudson-Odoi or Ziyech would be more likely. But since Callum Hudson-Odoi is not that reliable, maybe he was trying something else. Havertz has played on the right wing, so it was just a trial. You think there is this strange sense of discomfort or no confidence in the manager right now? People underestimate Lampard like nobody's business. I know he hasn't won a trophy like Arteta or anyone, but you think the criticism is fair?
You just said he hasn't won a trophy like Arteta has. I mean, both of them were vying for their first trophy in the same match.
Yeah.
To be very honest, so it could have very well have been Lampard. I mean, we had started that match in blazing glory, but I don't see I don't see that as a big downside, because that just means that Lampard doesn't have pressure on his head. I mean, I think it's always a good place to be in sports if people are underestimating you or terming you the underdog, because you tend to go into matches with nothing to lose, and that's always a better place to be than someone like Man City or Liverpool in this case, the defending champions who have a lot to lose, who are basically defending the reputation they have received from last season. So I don't see that as a downside. But if you ask me about Lampard, about his credentials and all, let's give credit where it's due. I mean, last season he could not do anything in the transfer market. He had a squad full of youngsters who were untested in the Premier League, but he brought us the fourth position and a Champions League finish, and that after being in the top four almost throughout the season. Like, our highest scorer was Tammy Abraham, and it was his first season in the Premier League. And I think the most number of assists was Mason Mount, and it was also his first season in the Premier League. I think that statistic in itself shows a lot of leadership quality that Lampard has. If you ask me about tactics, well, I think we have been seeing Chelsea play with a distinct identity, since last year, since the time that Lampard has taken charge. Yes, not everything has worked for them. The defense has been leaky, and players have been committing mistakes. But that's something you actually expect when you start young players in your team. I mean, if you don't let them grow by making mistakes, how else do you expect them to grow? So I don't think any demerit in Lampard managing this team. I think on the contrary, we can actually look at a long stint from Lampard, which is kind of an anomaly in Chelsea, where we have revolving door of managers almost on a yearly basis. So I think without the weight of expectations, Lampard will have it better going into this season, and it's a brilliant opportunity for him to bed in the new big names that he has brought in the club, and start a legacy for the future. Now, to the question if they are ready for Liverpool tomorrow, I'm not sure, to be very honest. I still see it Liverpool 2, Chelsea 1, but I would very much like to see that reversed as a fan.
So the thing about Liverpool is, let's talk about Liverpool now that they have bought Thiago and they have bought Diego Jota. So maybe Klopp will finally stop talking about Chelsea a bit. He has been talking about Chelsea a lot about the business that they have done,
Yes, yes.
and how like they are not that club. They are not that club that can spend 200 million in one single window, which is strange because they have done their spending over the years, which Chelsea does not have been able to. So that is a little bit of mind games from Klopp, I think, trying to put some pressure on Lampard. But coming to Liverpool, I don't think either of the new signings will be able to play, but still they will have a really strong team. First match against Leeds, we saw maybe a little rusty, very natural after a long season and hardly any preseason as such. So what do you think? You suggested 2-1, I think. That's your score line. I am going for a draw, actually. I think both,
A draw would be a good score for Chelsea, actually. For
actually,
you said that they were looking rusty, in the match with Leeds. Yes, you're right. But so were we. So were Chelsea.
exactly.
It was very clear that they needed some time to put in the training ground and gel well together, to know what each of them were good at, and to know how to optimize the players that they had at their disposal. I was talking a lot about Havertz not performing in that match, but I think a bigger disappointment than Havertz in that match was Ruben
Ruben
Loftus-Cheek.
Loftus.
Yes,
Yep,
I mean,
yep.
he was kind of a like Ross Barkley played much better than him when he came onto the scene, and uh, I actually see that number 10 as the position that Havertz would be playing his trade in future games. So
Yeah.
I think Ross Barkley will start there today because we don't have a right winger as of now. As I said, I don't think Callum Hudson-Odoi is going to start. So I see more or less the same team as last match, with the exception of Mateo Kovacic being thrown in. But yeah, a draw will actually be a very good result for the Chelsea team.
But will you play Kovacic by taking out Jorginho? Jorginho had a decent game last time.
Yes, he did. But if you ask me, I would play Kovacic and take out Jorginho every game. But that's just me. That's just me. I just like the player better.
No love for Jorginho anywhere in Chelsea.
Yes,
Dude just
I
can't
wouldn't say
finish it.
Jorginho does not work. I mean, he has a very niche way of working actually, which can work very well with certain teams. But well, Kovacic has has certain green lights to him. Like he's the more hardworking player. He's equal falling back and going forward, and he can actually shine in both those roles together. So I see him as a better partner to N'Golo Kante this season, but you cannot really go with two players in two positions throughout the season. So Jorginho will be needed from time to time. So if you ask a first team, defensive pivot pairing for Chelsea in a game against Liverpool, I would definitely go for Kante and Kovacic, and I think Lampard would too.
You think we should play Giroud? Giroud up top and maybe Warner as the second striker.
It would actually. I have forever been thinking about Lampard deploying a second striker because of Werner's success in a two striker role at Leipzig.
Yeah.
Now, what would actually be a very nice and refreshing look Chelsea team this this Liverpool match would be Warner drifting towards the left, replacing Mount there, and Giroud starting in front, and maybe Mount playing the role that Loftus-Cheek tried to play last match. That can actually be a very fresh look at the circumstances, because I don't see Loftus-Cheek starting again, and Mason Mount is better the number 10 role any day than Ross Barkley.
But then you'll have Havertz on the right again, which nobody wants.
We don't have anyone on the right now. Callum
Maybe,
Hudson-Odoi. Callum
no,
Hudson-Odoi, yes.
Mount can also play on the wings. Mount is quite versatile actually. But I
Yes, but
think we
I've
should
always seen him play in the left flank if we had to play in the flank.
preferably yes. Preferably yes. So maybe it is time for Callum Hudson-Odoi to show his chops. I mean, it's a big season for him as well. There has been talk of Bayern again coming up with a bid. I don't see what they see, quite honestly. They have really been after Callum Hudson-Odoi for a while. But it's a big season for the young lad as well. His last season wasn't really up to scratch as such, had injury problems, but off-field problems have been quite big in the media as far as Hudson-Odoi is concerned. And with the competition arriving for places, I think it's a really big season for the boy. I mean, if till January he doesn't do much in the Chelsea shirt, maybe a move will be beckoning for him.
Yeah, you're right. But look, Callum Hudson, last season, we have seen a lot of Chelsea youngsters make the cut for Lampard. I mean, Billy Gilmore, for example, came out of nowhere. I mean, none of us even knew he existed in the first team circle until we saw him playing against Liverpool, I think, last season.
Yeah.
Yeah, last season was the time to shine for all of these youngsters, and so many of them actually did. We saw Broja and all of those players also come in the team, and they also got this a spot in the sun. So yeah, I mean he had his problems with injuries throughout, but I still didn't see him play as much as he could have, even when he was not injured. So maybe he was not impressing Lampard in training that much, which is why Lampard was not really putting him on in the first team. But yeah, this is a big season for him. With the likes of Pedro and Willian gone, I think we would have to depend on him at some point in time. And it's high time that he proved his the talent that he has shown in bits and pieces so far. It's high time that he stepped forward and took onus of winning matches for the club that has been so patient and kind with him. So yeah, it's obviously a good season for him, and it's a season for him to prove himself as well. I mean, not if not to anyone else, then to himself, if he can succeed at this level or something like that. But yeah, I don't see him starting today's match, or rather tomorrow's match, because I think Lampard will give Havertz one more shot. I mean, uh, on the right at least. I see Ziyech making that role his own when he comes back into the team. But as of now, I think Lampard will give one more shot to Havertz.
I hope he kind of gives Hudson-Odoi his big game. I think Havertz is more probably useful either as a second forward or as a number 10. I don't think he has the right make to play like a winger, out and out winger in the Premier League. Okay, lots of Chelsea. Now let's talk a little bit about the champions because you know
Ah, yes.
it they are also in the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, they have been Liverpool over the last 2 years have been quite something. I mean, quite honestly, they have accumulated this team, which is a force in itself. But like we were talking in the previous podcast, that there needs to be some freshening up in the team. You felt they were slightly sloppy in the last few games that they have been. So Thiago and Diego Jota should be like a shot in the arm for this team, and they are already a very talented bunch. Klopp has mentioned that he doesn't expect any players to leave. Like there was talk of Wijnaldum going to Barcelona and such, but that doesn't seem to be happening. So Liverpool have a lot to prove. It's a strange thing to say after one game as the defending champions, because people have been questioning their commitment levels as such. So you think they start as favorites, quite frankly. They do start as favorites. But you think a draw might not be a bad result for either side that much, especially because it is so early in the season. Would you think Liverpool would see us drop points if they draw against Chelsea?
To be very honest, Liverpool have not been blazing on all guns in away matches as much as they have in home matches. I mean, in most away matches, Salah and Mane have not really come up with the goods, and it's mostly been the other stars of the team who have stepped up. I mean, most more often than not, it was Trent Alexander-Arnold corner or a free kick, which won them an away game last season. So they haven't been that good away, so to speak, over the last season as well. So and coming to the bridge, with things looking up for Chelsea, it's obviously quite intimidating for them as well. So a draw wouldn't be a bad result for them, but there are things which come with being champions of a league, and that's the expectation. And so no one can actually save them from starting with the expectation of being favorites in this match. So yeah, a draw wouldn't be a bad result for them at all. Like a draw is never a bad result for any top six clash per se, but they are going to play with the additional weight that comes with being champions. So yeah, I mean that's that for Liverpool. Brilliant squad, nothing against that, nothing taken away from there, and brilliant manager as well. So I think it'll be a scintillating match. Like all the Liverpool Chelsea matches of last year were end to end action. I expect more of the same from this one as well.
Okay, final score prediction.
Now, I said 2-1, didn't I? It can it can be 4-3 or 3-2 as well. I would rather go for a 4-3. Let's see.
I'm going for a 2-2 draw. I
Okay.
think both teams are a little rusty right now to go all guns blazing. Liverpool might make it, or even we might, but I think it will be a draw. Okay, so enough of Liverpool Chelsea big game. Let's look
Yep.
forward to that.
Hmm.
Now moving on to the next game. Which one do you want to cover?
Manchester United starting their journey at Crystal Palace this weekend. Finally.
Finally, Manchester United seem to be playing. It's been ages. Last we saw was in the Europa League, I believe. So, Man United have been an interesting case. Quite honestly, the fan base has been going in panic mode. especially after Tottenham have signed Reguilon and Bale. Liverpool have flashed the cash in the last 24 hours.
And
Even
Manu
after
was
that,
supposedly in talks with all of them.
exactly. So apparently the board has come out and said that all the media chatter about linking them to players is just to destabilize the club and cause unrest among the fans as such. But they haven't really done well in this market, to be honest. Van den Beek is a good buy, but not necessarily what they needed, right? I mean, Sancho, the whole fiasco about Sancho is also really crazy because I think for that money,
Still going on.
108, 108 million pounds, you can probably plug all the holes that that team has. Get a striker, get another winger, and maybe a left back and a centre back. So I don't think they're the best prepared for this season as of yet. But having said that, they have a good side. I mean, the first 11 is quite exciting. I mean, even if you take Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof as the centre back, but they are quite a force going up front. And on the other hand, Crystal Palace are also looking quite good. Roy Hodgson has this habit of bringing one up on the big sides every now and then. They played very well last season when they went to Old Trafford. So you think Palace has a chance this time as well?
And Wilfred Zaha is still going to be playing with the transfer window on. So that's something to look
Exactly,
forward to.
exactly.
So that's something to look forward to as
Like,
well.
you need a winger, forget Sancho. Atletico, he will look at me. But I don't think that's going to happen because, quite frankly, I don't think Man United fans really rate Zaha as, oh, Sancho is going to do so much, he's going to sell so many shirts. But I don't think they rate Zaha in the same thing because he came from the academy.
No, I mean, I don't think Zaha is anyway close to signing for Man United because I think he got his chance at Man United earlier in his career and he did not really work that well for them. So I don't think Manu would ever be too keen on him. But Zaha being Zaha, I again expect him to fire on all cylinders with his long ranges and all. I'm also very excited about Eberechi Eze. I mean, he had a nice little cameo role in his last match. But what was extremely exciting to watch after he came on was the Crystal Palace team actually came alive in those last few minutes of the match, and it was kind of like a trailer to the season. And I actually see him starting this match. So. Yeah, it's a very difficult match for Crystal Palace, and as you said, the Manu first 11 is if you have to rate them, where would the first 11 end up in the league? It will definitely be top three or top four, but you cannot play an entire season with only 11 players, and that's where the signings that you were talking about, or the lack thereof, actually come into play. So for this first match, I don't see them running into problems with Crystal Palace per se, but for the longer season, well, the transfer window is still open till October 5, and shows a better hope that Ed Wood will bring someone through the doors.
Yeah, so Ed Woodward has especially come under a lot of criticism of late. And
Only of
quite
late.
frank, maybe he's a really unpopular figure at United.
Yes.
But to be honest, United have spent a lot of money over the years. It's not like they haven't spent. They have got Pogba at world record money. They got Sanchez at these crazy wages, and they have spent money over
Maguire.
the years. Although Maguire was like the Mourinho signing that happened one season later, but they have been spending money. The criticism, I believe, is that it hasn't been spent the most wisely that it could have been. Especially when you see Thiago going for 28 million to Liverpool, which seems outstanding business, right? I mean, even Diego Jota is apparently 35 million for a 23-year-old player. That's great business. I mean, I get where the criticism about not bringing in new players is coming from. Man U finished exactly the same points as Chelsea last season, so they have the same rebuild job to close the gap between Man City and Liverpool. But at the same time, they have spent a lot of money trying to bridge the gap over the last couple of years, just that it hasn't been spent wisely. So I think the fan base needs to really be a little cautious about what they're trying to get with Jadon Sancho. I mean, you don't want to spend 100 million on a player that maybe adds more goals to your team, but next season you don't have the funds to buy a good defender if he comes. So something
That
to watch
has
out.
that has exactly been the case with Barcelona this season, right? Like they don't really have money to buy anyone this season. Though, like Koeman keeps talking about bringing a revolution to the club, but revolution
They're
using the
buying
same
well because
players.
they are buying more attacking players. I don't think they care about defense. They are like Messi is here. Let's forget defense. Yeah.
No, anyway, look, yeah, Jadon Sancho has been a very good player for Borussia Dortmund over the past 2 years, but again, like like we have seen with Havertz struggling when he came in from Germany and all. The German Bundesliga and the English Premier League are not the same, and paying 110 million for any player is a lot to ask from that player itself. Like Pogba, like when he came at 105 million pounds, I think, if I'm not wrong, which was a
It's
transfer.
80 million. What, 80 or 90 million?
I
I don't think it's
105 million euros then. I'm sorry. I mixed up the currencies there. So, yeah, even when he came with that price tag on his head, there was a huge pressure on his head to succeed. And that pressure actually kind of holds you back from playing at with your national flair and stuff. So, I think the frustration is coming from the lack of Ed Woodward being proactive more than anything else. Like, Liverpool bought Simicas at 12 million, right? I mean, that was not a huge signing, but it was a signing nevertheless. Diogo Jota, again, not a huge signing, but an exciting signing nevertheless. So, Manu haven't had these exciting, like, few young signings too, going their way, which is why the frustration has kind of snowballed to this point, I think. But I don't think it's a matter for worry yet, because there's still about 2 weeks of the transfer window left, and a lot can happen in 2 weeks, as we all know, in football.
well,
So coming back to the Manu Crystal Palace game, what do you see the scoreline as?
I think Crystal Palace can get a point out of this or two. I think they might surprise Man United, and I'm going for a 2-1 Palace victory
At Old Trafford?
at Old Trafford. I want a repeat of last year.
Okay, okay. It's not always what you want, but what.
These are my predictions. They're not based on scientific and analytical genius. They are all based upon my hatred for other clubs and my love for Chelsea. So,
Okay, okay. So you're actually
I
seeing.
am like.
Okay, so you're actually seeing Crystal Palace, upsetting Manu in a way.
But I have a logical point there. I think Palace has had more game time, which is very underestimated at the beginning of the season because, quite frankly, Man United struggled in that game against that friendly game against Aston Villa. I mean, we should not read too much into preseason games, of course, but yes, match fitness is something that you should consider. And the fact that Palace are an attacking team, I think they will score. I don't know if they will win or not, but I think they will score.
Okay, okay. So a draw from you, 2-2, or Palace win,
2-1 to Palace. 2-1 to Palace.
2-1 to Palace. I would actually go 2-1 to Manu, but
Okay.
let's see what happens.
Okay. Moving on to Arsenal, let's talk
Yeah,
about our neighbors for a bit.
I think this is the easiest game to cover today. It's Arsenal versus West Ham, and I can just straight away go into the score, and it'll be 3-0 Arsenal. I mean, there's no seeing beyond Arsenal in this match. West Ham are in a shambles, and I don't expect them to give a fight back to Arsenal, who have
But it's a
looked.
London derby. Come on, it's a London derby with there must be some fire in their bellies after the last game because quite frankly, West Ham have been criticized like nobody's business after the last game. And to say that it's just after one game, I mean, yeah, they were poor last season as well. They just managed to stay in the Premier League by the skin of their teeth. But do you think the criticism is a little overboard? I mean, yeah, there are worse sides in the Premier League. And West Ham as a squad are not the worst, quite honestly. Just that they haven't played to their potential is what the criticism is coming from, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, as a squad, they are not the worst, but for the last few months, their top striker has been Michel Antonio. that says something to you about the team. They have Sebastian Haller, who has had great performances, coming from him in the Bundesliga. He is not apparently not good enough for the English Premier League yet. There were times in the last 2 seasons when Yarmolenko and Felipe Anderson played really well, but even they seem to have lost their touch of late. Rice is a bright point in their entire team, and so Mark Noble is always solid. But their defense, I mean, uh, things haven't really clicked for West Ham for a long time now, and they haven't changed anything to suggest that it might click. It might start clicking now. Hence, there's a lot of criticism coming their way, which is obvious when things don't go your way. But they haven't even changed anything to to try and change the course of where this is going. In fact, they are they are about to maybe lose more players, and if they also lose Rice, then it's slim pickings for them this season. So, second match with Arsenal after a first match loss against Newcastle, I see them. I don't see them coming with a fight back.
What about Arsenal? Aubameyang has signed a new deal, so there's reason to rejoice there for Arsenal fans. They are still trying to get the deals done for Partey and Awa, or how do you pronounce it? I don't know.
Awa,
Awa.
awa.
Okay. So, expensive deals, to be very honest. I don't think Atletico or Leon would like to let these players go without much fight. There will be hefty price tag. So, even if the deals don't happen, Arsenal have a decent side to challenge for top four, like we were discussing last time. You think which one, if you had the pick of one, which one would you have, Partey or Awa?
I would actually
If you
go
could
for
only pick
Awa.
one,
I'd actually go for Awa there
okay.
for two reasons actually. Because one, the history of French players at Arsenal, it has always kind of clicked for them. And Awa is fresher, he is younger, and he would come at lower wages. And I don't think he would have much expectations on his shoulders as Partey would have it, because he has been established at Atletico Madrid for a couple of seasons now. So I would rather go for our. But before we talk about what Arsenal needs in their midfield, I think the biggest credit that Arteta actually deserves is improving the players that are already at his disposal. I mean, if you had seen the Arsenal Fulham match last week, I mean that was a very professional and clean performance from a guy like Mohamed El Neni, which you don't really
Yeah,
expect from
yeah,
him.
but that's the thing. I mean, the thing people have been talking about Arsenal is that they do turn up for the big games. They are organized enough to, now they play this counter-attacking style, which is not the very traditional Arsenal way that you think of it. Now, Fulham are not really the side that will test Arsenal as such. I don't know West Ham would do it either, because West Ham on a good day might have given them a game, but right now it's a very difficult task for them seemingly. But I think when you come to Arsenal, the real test will come from the Sheffield Uniteds and the likes of Leeds United, where the games that you expect Arsenal to eke out to win, but that's where they come short usually when the fight is on as such. So I'm looking forward to the Brighton game against Arsenal most likely. I want to see what happens. Because people really criticize Brighton a lot. I think, yeah,
Oh,
they have
they
issues.
played a very good match against Chelsea, I must say. I mean,
They have
I
issues
was.
with goals. Brighton is not a bad side otherwise.
It's
They
not
don't
anymore.
really have the player up front, but they will surprise quite a few people who come to their stadium, like Arsenal find out last year. You know.
And Tariq Lamptey from last match. I mean, he comes back to haunt Chelsea fans. I mean, it
But
was kind of a race
but
between
I
James
love
and.
the post-match reaction by Ian Wright, if you have seen that, where he's
I
talking about,
haven't actually.
so where Ian Wright is talking about, throughout the match, I'm looking at Lamptey and I'm going, why would Chelsea in the right minds be letting this kid leave? And then from all of a sudden,
Yes,
James
James
scores this,
Sports.
and then you're like, oh, now I know. Okay.
Exactly.
That's
It's like both of them actually competing against each other to show, hey,
which is great to see. Which is absolutely great to see. I mean, quite frankly, I'm a little pissed that we don't have a buyback clause in Lamptey's contract as
Yeah,
such
I mean
because quite
that would have been quite a loss. I mean, we should have put a buyback clause in there. But I think, like, with Chelsea, if they want to buy a player, I mean, they don't do it the buyback clause route. I think. I mean, remember Nathan Ake, for example, earlier this season. So I think if we have to buy Lamptey, we can buy him back again. But yeah, I mean, we were talking about Arsenal. What's your prediction in the scoreline?
I I think they'll go 3-0 again. Even I think 2-0 actually. I think it will be a clinical win by now. Brilliant to score.
Ah, yes, I have Willian in my FPL team this time.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on to a very good match now. Man City versus Wolves at the Molineux.
Wolves.
Yes.
Have you
At
seen the third kit? Have you seen the latest third kit for Wolves?
the latest,
Third kit for Wolves.
which one?
So it looks like exactly like the
Ah,
Portugal
yes, yes,
jersey.
the white and blue one, right?
No, no, this looks exactly like the Portugal home jersey. The same colors.
Okay.
It's like it's like a ode to Nuno Espirito Santo. You're doing the right thing. So Wolves are an interesting case as well. I mean, Diego Jota, big loss. I think, quite honestly, I think one of the best players last season. Adama Traore is still there, not yet taken, but people eyeing him as well. And of course, Matthew Doherty is not there anymore. Uh, Wolves, although Fabio Silva had a game, I think he played in this EFL Cup, or was that the Europa League qual? No, sorry, it was the EFL Cup.
Yes,
So Fabio Silva had their first game. I think they lost that game, Wolves.
they
So
got knocked out.
not a great start there. So Man City, we haven't seen Man City as of yet. They will have a point to prove after last season as well. Things haven't exactly gone to plan, and Messi hasn't come to the Etihad, so that's a miss there as well. So, what are your predictions? Big game, exciting game, big scoring game.
Not a big scoring game, but I kind of see this as a draw, to be very honest, because it's always difficult to play at the Molineux. I mean, the Wolves are extremely difficult to beat at their own backyard, and Man City, yeah, I mean they have retained most of their old core, but I think David Silva has been a big loss this season. They have a ready-made, backup for David Silva, like not a backup anymore. Phil Foden in there, and it's going to be a season to watch out for when it comes to Foden this time. But I don't think they have had much match practice before the season, and to to start off your season at the Molineux against Wolves, who have won a good first match against Sheffield, is always a difficult proposition to face. But I still don't see them fading through and submitting to the Wolves as such. So I see it as a very very exciting end-to-end draw. Rather, I would go for a 2-2.
I think I'll go for a Man City win. I think first game of the season, it's time to make a statement for a Guardiola side. And the thing about Liverpool and Man City is that these group of players have been together for a while. Yes, they have had these odd new players coming up. You have Ferran Torres and Nathan Ake for Man City, for example. But the core of the team is still has been there for a couple of years. So
Except
I don't think,
Guerrero, who is injured for 2 months.
yeah, but you have already made replacement in Gabriel Jesus there. So I don't think that will be adjustment issues as such. And when you talk about Silva, yes, he will be a big loss. I think master player. I think easily their best player in the last 10 years for me.
And the best player
Aguero
ever for Man
maybe
City.
for Man City. I think Aguero comes close maybe, but I think Silva just has been phenomenal for them. Um, I find it strange that Bernardo Silva has not really been touted as the person to take that role as such. Because quite frankly, they always keep choosing between Bernardo Silva and Riyad Mahrez, and somebody has to stay on the bench for that matter. I think it makes sense to play them both with one slightly withdrawn, which can be Bernardo Silva, because excellent technical player as such. But I think Man City will set out to make a statement this season. early on at least, because quite frankly, the games will come thick and fast, and you can't really sit around this season waiting for you to get form in. Last season they started well, but one mistake and Liverpool just skyrocketed above that gap. So big season for them as well. So I think we'll start with the win. I think 3-1 to Man City.
Okay, okay, well plans. So moving on, another like an extremely interesting match, match between two of the losers from last week, Southampton versus Tottenham.
Tottenham have some really interesting stuff to talk about.
Yes, always.
Jose wasn't really happy last week, was he? I mean, it was the big battle between him and Ancelotti, and quite frankly, even though the scoreline was just 1-0, I think the performance was quite telling that way. So
I mean,
great move.
they seem devoid of any plan. Like, it was not the score line per se, and even with the score line, it could have been a lot more for Everton with the number of chances that Richarlison missed in last match. So it was not the score line that went against him, because that header was the only point in the match where, the scorers were actually perturbed. But there was no hint of a plan from Mourinho, or plan B, or hey, this is not working out, let's work this and try to shuffle some things up. He tried on his own, he brought Ndombele in, and apparently they have solved their issues and stuff. But nothing, that spark was kind of missing from the Spurs attack and the Spurs playing in general. And also, also came to know after the match, this was the first time that Mourinho actually lost a match to start off the season. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, he shouldn't be. He isn't one who would be happy about a thing like that. So this,
You think he does this on purpose, Mourinho? He puts out the first game, not as well. It wasn't a great tactical performance by
it
Mourinho
wasn't.
either.
It wasn't.
Right. You think it was on purpose so that Daniel Levy realizes, this squad is not there. I need some reinforcements. So might as well screw up now before the transfer window shuts so that I can get some players. Because it has seen a reaction, quite frankly, from the board in the way they have reacted. I mean, getting Reguilon was a good move. I don't think Ben Davis is a top four left back as such. He used to be very good, but he seems to be coming towards the end of his, later part of his career, which just means that he's not that pacey anymore. So Reguilon improves that left side immediately. Bale is a really strange one because, quite frankly, I am not too sure how many teams would want to keep Bale in their side right now. I think there was a little chat about Man United also looking at this team, but I don't think Bale fits that profile that they're looking for right now. But the thing about Bale is a fit Bale is great. Champions League winner, big goal scorer. He's a great thing to have in the team when he's fully fit. But the whole question mark thing about Bale's commitment and whether he will be fit for the whole season. You think it's a good move? Gareth to Tottenham?
Bale to Spurs.
Yeah.
Look, I think the motive of the move is to bring a homeboy back, more than anything else. I mean, it's supposed to be good for the club, because I think Bale was the reason of of attracting many fans to Tottenham Hotspurs Football Club in the first place. My brother being one of them. So that is one of the reasons of bringing him back, more than the fact that they needed him per se. Because I think the front three of Mora, Son, and Harry Kane were self-sufficient in themselves, and Bale is also going to be a very expensive buy for them. At times when money is so hard to come by. But what the addition of Bale will actually do to the Tottenham squad is it will bring the morale up, which actually they look devoid of in the last match. To be very honest.
There was talk of, Dele Alli going to Real
Yes.
in the opposite direction for this, deal. And
Yep.
I was like, in what have Real Madrid been smoking that they would sanction this deal? Because
No,
quite
because
frankly,
I'll tell you why. Because Messi is going away next season, right? After that, Dele Alli will be enough.
So that's a strange one. I mean, I get the fact that Dele Alli needs a move to, get his career back on track or something like that. But, Real Madrid usually go for the best players in your team. Dele Alli was nowhere near the best player even in Spurs reserves last week. So I don't know where this news is coming from. So, so enough there. I think, although it's a big boost, I don't think either of them are going to play again um,
Yeah.
tomorrow.
But not to take anything away from Southampton as well. They're a team I admire very much. I mean, though they lost the first match this season, so I think they would be hungry to take one back and to swipe at Tottenham before they can feel Bale and Reguilon. So I actually see this as an upset, as a potential upset. One, because it's at St Mary's, it's away for Tottenham, and secondly because morale wise they're not doing as well, and Bale and Reguilon won't be playing this match per se. So good good opportunity for Southampton to take some points there.
There is talk of, Danny Ings being chased by some big six clubs, can't tell who. I think there was talk of Tottenham putting in the bid for Danny Ings to play with Harry Kane. It seems a strange one, quite frankly. I think Danny Ings had the exact same situation in Liverpool, where things did not turn out the right way, and he came back to Southampton and finally had found his form after that move to Burnley for a few days as well. So I don't think that move happening again. I mean, if he has to go, he'll probably go to a Man United or some place where he has some minutes at least guaranteed. Quite frankly, this move would be, it won't make any sense to me. Does it make any sense to you?
Look, the thing about like you said, the move to Liverpool wasn't really fruitful for Danny Ings, and there's a reason for that. Whenever a top six team comes for a player like Danny Ings, they look at him as a second striker. Like a
Yeah.
Spurs team, he would play second fiddle to Kane, for sure. That is why Spurs have had such a problem in getting a second striker for their team, because whichever striker they actually contact or get in touch with, they know they're going to play second fiddle to Kane, and there's no two ways about it. But that is the problem with Ings to whichever club he goes. If he goes to Manu, he'll play second fiddle to either Martial or a Mason Greenwood for that matter, and even
Yeah.
to Liverpool
Even
as
like
such.
Italo.
Yeah. So, what Southampton actually affords him is the chance to carry a team on his own shoulders, which he actually wants to do, and to be honest, has been doing very well over the past few seasons. He has been one of the most consistent scorers all through past season, and I'm saying this from fantasy Premier League experience. So
Nice, nice.
I admire their team, and I admire Ings, and I actually expect Ings to score against Tottenham this game week.
Okay. So what's your score line?
Um, 1-0 or 2-1 to Southampton.
I'm going for a 2-0 to Tottenham.
Okay, okay.
So we'll quickly touch upon some games. You have Aston Villa and Sheffield United as well. So
I'll go for Sheffield. 2-0 Aston Villa.
Aston Villa have a, I don't know quite frankly. I mean, the new striker haven't seen much of him, so
Only
might be
Watkins.
some. Yes, Watkins might be an interesting player to watch out for. Grealish has signed a 5-year contract now, so either they are trying to get as much money out of Man United as possible if they ever come in for him, or it's just a more uh, it's a heads up to the club that I'm here to stay for a few while. So that augurs well for Aston Villa as such. Sheffield United looked nice in their ECL Cup game. I mean, they lost again, but then they were quite decent in that game as well. So I think Sheffield United will probably win that. 2-0 to Sheffield United.
Why, yeah, why I also say Sheffield is because it's Aston Villa's first game of the season, and you're talking about Ollie Watkins and all. I mean, they haven't had games with this group of players before today, so it'll be very difficult for Aston Villa against a hungry Sheffield, who have dropped points in their first match. So I can't really see beyond Sheffield in this match.
Okay. So coming to Everton and West Brom. So Ancelotti's Everton seem to be everyone's second favorite team right now. I mean, James Rodriguez
Not
had a
mine,
great.
not mine.
Well, you are one of the few exceptions then. Quite frankly, everyone has been raving about James Rodriguez and how amazing of a debut the three of them made, along with Allen and Abdullah Dakouri. So it's a little early days to be very honest. I mean, it was just one game against Tottenham, so wouldn't read too much into it. But James seemed impressive there. Coming to West Brom, there we have two interesting former Chelsea players there now. So you have Branislav Ivanovic right now as the new centre back for a year at West Brom, and we have Conor Gallagher who has gone on there for a loan. Gallagher had a great season in the championship with two clubs, strangely, but he did well for both of them. So it might be a good deal for Lampard to see whether the kid has anything to show him, if he can stay in the league and make an impression as such. So, what do you think? Everton are being a little overhyped after one game, or you think they have the goods to make a sustained run?
Look, the problem with Everton over the years has been their inconsistency. I mean, one match they play brilliantly and they look unbeatable. Next match they lose to relegation contenders. So, that has been the plague that has followed Everton through their slump over the past few years, and I think there's high possibility of them slipping through in this match as well. In fact, um, I I want to see a draw between West Brom and Everton, and I think West Brom will fight back after that first drubbing against Leicester as well. So I don't have my hopes up and say that Everton are going to sail through without any obstruction. But yeah, they do come across as favorites in that game. I would
Okay.
still say
So
1-1 West Brom Everton.
I think Everton to win. 2-0 to Everton.
Okay, that
Okay.
match has started by the way.
So what we'll do is we'll just run through the last round of games and quick score predictions. Okay.
Okay, okay.
So Leicester versus Burnley.
Leicester 2-1.
Okay, I'm going for a draw. 1-1 Leicester and Burnley. We have Brighton and Newcastle. Newcastle at home.
This is actually a good match. I can't pick a winner, to be very honest, because Newcastle had a very good first match, but again Brighton looked very sharp. So and they're also hungry. But Newcastle's home advantage. So I will give it. I think there's a lot of goals in this match. So 2-1 or 3-2 to Newcastle.
Okay. I think Newcastle might just make this one. So 2-1 to Newcastle.
Okay.
So that's about all the games that we have this
Oh,
week,
and you did not cover my second favorite team. It's not Everton.
which is,
It's Leeds.
oh right, Leeds are playing. I
Fulham.
forgot. Leeds are playing Fulham.
The
So
first
this is
points for Leeds.
the first 6 pointer in the league, right?
Yes, yes. I think
Although
Leeds are going to win that hands down. I mean, I see a 2-0 win against Fulham at the least because I don't see Fulham to have the characteristics or the pedigree to play at this level as of now, before they make any signings. And they haven't really made much movement in the market even after that Arsenal game. So I see a comfortable win, 2-0 or a 3-0 win for Leeds over there. And the
yeah,
first points for Leeds after a long time in the Premier League.
Leeds are an interesting case because quite frankly, this all-out gung-ho, full steam ahead, always attacking style of play. Now it can have this other side as well when you're leaking goals all the time. So no matter you're scoring 2 or 3 every game, you're also conceding the same amount of goals. So I want to see if Leeds have that discipline about them to, see out some games where they don't need to absolutely keep going all the time. Because quite frankly, the Premier League will be long and hard on them if they don't have enough at the back to keep those gates closed when they need to. So I'm interested in the game to see how the Leeds defense is quite front. Because of course Liverpool are one of the best attacking sides in the division. So let's see what happens with Fulham. But I think Leeds will have a comfortable win. I think 3-0 to Leeds.
Yep, I think so too.
So that's all the games that we could do this weekend. So I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's game. Quite frankly, it will be a good early test for us. Not that it will define our season in general, because a lot of players have to come back in and a lot of games have to be played. But a big sign of things to come, maybe, and maybe if we get to manage to get some points of Liverpool, it will also give a impetus to some other teams like Man City and Manchester United to, go out and beat Liverpool, because they have this unbeatable aura about them for a while right now. Last season everyone has been saying, since they won the league, they didn't have that motivation to, keep that winning streak going. So it will be interesting to see what happens.
Yep, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. So
And
thank you.
Crash Chaduredi.
Thank you, Sridhar. Yeah. So,
So
thank
it
you,
was
Pratik. Thank you
good
everyone else
discussion.
for
Yeah,
listening
yeah, always.
to this podcast again. We'll see you for another weekend Vartalaap next week. Okay? Till then, signing off.
Bye
Ciao.
bye.
Bye bye.